The sweet, intoxicating scent hit me like a freight train in the middle of the Tokyo merger call. One moment I was discussing acquisition terms with Nakamura, San, my fingers drumming impatiently on the mahogany desk as numbers scrolled across 3 monitors. The next, my entire world narrowed to the figure swaying beside my chair, Elliot, my perfect, efficient, male beta secretary, suddenly emanating the most devastating omega pheromones I ever encountered. My alpha instincts roared to life with a violence that made my vision blur red at the edges. 6 months, 6 goddamn months of working side by side with him, and he been lying to me the entire time. Mr. Crawford, Nakamura's tinny voice crackled through the speakers, but I was already slamming the laptop shut, my hand shooting out to lock the office door with a decisive click that echoed through the room like a gunshot. Elliot, honey. Brown eyes were glazed, dilated with need, his usually neat chestnut hair disheveled as he gripped the edge of my desk for support. His white dress shirt clung to his trembling frame, and I could see the failed suppressant patch peeling away from his neck, the adhesive giving up just like his carefully constructed lie. Vincent, I am sorry, I can tee. His voice broke into a whimper that shot straight through my chest and lower, igniting every primitive instinct I spent 38 years learning to control. I should fire him, call security, throw him out of my office and my life for this deception. Instead, I found myself crossing the space between us in 2 strides, my hands gripping his narrow waist as I lifted him onto the desk, scattering quarterly reports and merger documents to the floor. His legs wrapped around me instinctively, his body seeking the relief only an alpha could provide, and my last shred of rationality snapped like an overstretched wire. Please, Elliot sobbed against my shoulder, his fingers clawing at my suit jacket. It hurts. I am sorry, please. I buried my face in the curve of his neck, breathing in that maddeningly sweet scent of vanilla and something uniquely him, and felt my canines lengthen in response. Every fiber of my being screamed to claim, to mark, to make this lying, perfect, infuriating omega mine. That was 30 minutes ago. Now, as I stared down at the temporary bonding mark, ID left on Elliot's neck, the evidence of my complete loss of control, I had to reckon with the fact that ID just destroyed every principle ID built my career on. The whole disaster had started 6 months earlier, on a Wednesday morning that began with me firing Jessica Chen. But Mr. Crawford, I thought you felt something too, she stammered, mascara running down her face as she clutched a folder of expense reports against her chest, like a shield. The way you look at me when I bring your coffee. I look at everyone the same way, I said flatly, already pulling up the HR portal on my computer. With indifference, sign the severance agreement. You have 30 minutes to clear your desk. She was the 5th secretary in 2 years. The pattern was always the same. They start competent, then develop feelings, then their work would deteriorate as they spent more time mooning over me than actually doing their jobs. The fact that I was an unmated alpha at 38 apparently made me irresistible to every omega and beta woman in the building. I was tired of it. Get me Marcus from HR. I barked into my phone after Jessica finally left, still sniffling. Now, Marcus appeared 10 minutes later, a nervous beta with thinning hair and a tablet clutched to his chest. He knew that tone in my voice meant someone was about to have a very bad day. I need a new secretary, I said without preamble. Male, beta only. Verify it with medical records if you have to. No omegas, no alphas, and absolutely no one who is going to develop inappropriate feelings and fuck up my schedule. Male beta, yes sir, Marcus scribbled notes frantically. Any other requirements? Competent, efficient, invisible. I want someone who shows up, does the work, and goes home without making my life complicated. Is that really too much to ask? Apparently it wasn't, because 2 weeks later, Elliot Hayes walked into my office for his final interview. He was beautiful in an understated way that I barely registered at the time. Fine features, warm brown eyes, and a quiet competence that radiated from the way he carried himself. His references were impeccable. His typing speed was 95 words per minute. He graduated top of his class from NYU and had spent 3 years working for a senior partner at Goldman Sachs before the partner retired. "Why did you leave Goldman?" I asked, studying him across my desk. "Personal reasons," Elliot said smoothly, meeting my gaze without flinching. "My mother's health required me to relocate to New York. I am looking for a stable position with room for growth." "This isn't a stepping stone position," I warned. "I don't tolerate ambition that comes at the expense of doing your actual job. You'd be my secretary, not an analyst in training, I understand. Mr. Crawford, I am looking for stability, not a fast track to partnership." Something in his voice made me believe him. I glanced at the medical records Marcus had flagged. Beta, no concerning health issues, no suppressant prescriptions that would indicate hidden omega status. "You are hired. Start Monday. 8 a.m. sharp. I take my coffee black. I don't do small talk. And if you develop any sort of personal attachment to me, you are fired clear." A flicker of something, amusement, crossed Elliot's face. "Crystal clear, Mr. Crawford." That should have been my first warning. No one found my behavior amusing. Most people found me terrifying, which was exactly how I liked it. Elliot started the following Monday, and within a week, I understood why Goldman had been sorry to lose him. He anticipated my needs before I voiced them. He managed my chaotic schedule with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. He deflected unwanted calls, organized my files, and somehow made the entire office run smoother without ever making a fuss about it. More importantly, he showed absolutely no sign of personal interest in me. When I worked late, he worked late without complaint. When I was in a foul mood, which was often, he simply adjusted his approach without taking it personally. He was professional, courteous, and completely neutral. He was perfect. "Elliot's working out well," Marcus commented casually about 2 months in, popping his head into my office during a rare quiet moment. "He is adequate," I said, which from me was high praise. "The staff likes him too. Very friendly, but professional." "Hasn't he caused any drama?" I grunted in acknowledgement, already turning back to my computer. Drama free was exactly what I wanted. Over the next few months, I found myself relying on Elliot more than I relied on any previous secretary. He learned my preferences, my moods, my work style. He knew when to interrupt me with urgent matters and when to hold all calls. He organized my life so efficiently that I actually found myself leaving the office before midnight on occasion. "You are smiling, my brother," David observed during our monthly dinner at Per Se. "That is disturbing. What is wrong with you?" "I am not smiling. You are doing that thing where the corner of your mouth twitches upward. For you, that is basically a grin. Did you finally fire that terrible board member who keeps questioning your decisions?" I hired a competent secretary." David nearly choked on his wine after 5 disasters in 2 years. "What is different about this one?" "He is male, Beta. No romantic complications." David leaned back, studying me with the knowing look of someone who watched me sabotage every potential relationship for the past decade. "So you finally found the perfect solution. Eliminate the possibility of attraction entirely." "I eliminated the possibility of disruption," I corrected. "There is a difference." "Sure there is. How is that working out for your personal life?" "I don't have a personal life. I have a career." "Vince, you are 38. Don't you want?" "No." I cut him off. "I don't want a mate. I don't want complications. And I don't want to have this conversation again. My life is exactly how I want it." It was true, or at least, I deconvinced myself it was true. I had my work, my reputation, my corner office with a view of Manhattan that cost more than most people's houses. I didn't need the messy complications of relationships or the liability of caring about someone who could be used against me. Elliot fit perfectly into this worldview. He was an employee, nothing more. The fact that I started noticing small things about him, the way he bit his lip when concentrating, how he always smelled faintly of vanilla, and something I could quite identify, the rare smile that transformed his entire face, was irrelevant. I noticed details about everyone. It was part of what made me good at my job. Then came the Tokyo merger. It was supposed to be a straightforward video conference. Negotiate final terms with Nakamura Corporation for their acquisition of our tech subsidiary. The deal was worth $300 million, and I'd been working on it for 8 months. Everything was in place. All we needed was Nakamura's signature. Coffee, Mr. Crawford? Elliot asked, setting up my laptop for the call. Black, 2 sugars, I said absently, reviewing my notes. He paused. You take your coffee black, no sugar. I looked up, irritated. I know how I take my coffee, Elliot. Of course, I'll be right back. But there was something odd in his voice, a slight tremor that I'd never heard before. The call started precisely at 2 p.m. Nakamura-san appeared on screen, his team arrayed behind him in their Tokyo conference room. We exchanged pleasantries, then dove into the final contract terms. That is when I noticed Elliot swaying slightly beside my chair. The intellectual property clauses are acceptable, I was saying, but my attention was splitting, some primal part of my brain suddenly alert to the change in Elliot's posture, his breathing. Then the scent hit. It started subtle, so faint, I thought I was imagining it. Then it grew stronger, sweeter, flooding my senses with the intensity that made my hands clench on the desk. Omega. Not just any omega, a omega in heat, the pheromones so potent that my vision actually tunneled for a moment. My head snapped toward Elliot. His face was flushed, his pupils blown wide, and I could see the suppressant patch on his neck literally peeling away, the adhesive failing in real time. 6 months, 6 months of lies. Mr. Crawford, Nakamura's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you still there? Every alpha instinct I possessed roared to life. Mind, claim, protect. The rational part of my brain that had built a billion-dollar career screamed that I was in the middle of a crucial negotiation, that there were people on the screen watching, that I needed to maintain control. The alpha in me didn't to give a damn about any of that. I slammed the laptop shut with enough force to crack the screen, my hand already reaching for the door lock. The click echoed through the suddenly silent office. Vincent, Elliot's voice was barely recognizable, thick with need and fear. I am sorry, I didn't know. The suppressants. You lied to me. My voice came out as a growl that would have terrified me if I'd been capable of rational thought. 6 months. You lied for 6 months. I had to. He was backing away from me, but his body betrayed him, swaying toward me even as his eyes showed panic. Please, I need this job. I can. You are an omega. I stalked toward him, and he retreated until his back hit the desk. In my office, in heat. Do you have any idea what you've done? The scent was overwhelming now, vanilla and honey, and something uniquely Elliot that made my mouth water and my canines ache. I could see him trembling, could smell the slick starting to soak through his tailored pants, and every civilized part of me was drowning in the need to claim what was mine. I am sorry, Elliot sobbed, and the sound of it, broken and desperate and needy, shattered what little control I had left. Please, it hurts. I grabbed him then, lifting him onto the desk with a strength I didn't know I possessed. Papers scattered, my coffee mug shattered on the floor. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered, except the omega in my arms. Finally where he belonged. Tell me to stop, I demanded, even as my hands were already tearing at his shirt, sending buttons scattering across the expensive carpet. Tell me to stop and I'll call medical, get you to a heat room. Don't stop, Elliot gasped, his legs wrapping around my waist with a desperation that matched my own. Please don't stop. Need alpha. His heat, addled state was begging for any alpha. I told myself. This wasn't about me specifically, but when his fingers tangled in my hair and pulled me down to his neck, exposing that pale, unmarked skin, I stopped thinking entirely. I'd never bitten anyone before. Never wanted to. The idea of being permanently bonded to another person had always seemed like a liability, a weakness someone could exploit. But when my teeth sank into the juncture of Elliot's neck and shoulder, marking him as mine in the most primal way possible, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. His cry of pleasure, pain shot through me, and I felt the temporary bond snap into place. Not permanent, but strong enough that I could feel his emotions, his desperate need, his terror, and relief all tangled together. What followed was a blur of sensation and instinct. I'd had sex before, clinical emotionless encounters that scratched an itch and nothing more. This was nothing like that. This was consuming, overwhelming, a claiming so complete that I lost track of where I ended and Elliot began. When I finally regained some semblance of rational thought, we were both collapsed on my desk, our clothes in ruins around us, and Elliot was crying softly against my chest. The temporary mark on his neck was already darkening, a clear sign of alpha possession that would last weeks. I stared at it, my mind slowly processing what I'd done. I'd bitten my secretary. I'd claimed an Omega who been lying to me for 6 months. I'd abandoned a $300 million merger call to fuck him on my desk like an animal. I was going to be sick. Get up, I said, my voice rough. I pulled away from him, ignoring his whimper of protest, and started hunting for my clothes. Get dressed now. Elliot moved slowly, his heat temporarily satisfied, but far from over. I could see him shaking as he tried to button the shirt. I destroyed, finally giving up and just holding it closed across his chest. Mr. Crawford, don't I cut him off, yanking my pants on with sharp, angry movements. Don't say anything. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just, I ran my hands through my hair, trying to think past the rage and confusion and lingering arousal. Just tell me why. Why would you lie about being an Omega? Why risk everything? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached into his destroyed jacket and pulled out a crumpled envelope, handing it to me with shaking fingers. I opened it, my eyes scanning the medical letterhead. St. Luke's Hospital. Patient Margaret Hayes. Diagnosis Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Estimated treatment cost $850,000. The date was from 7 months ago, right before Elliot had applied for the job. My mother, Elliot whispered, and his voice was so broken that something in my chest cracked. She is all I have. The treatments aren't covered by insurance. I needed. This job pays 3 times what I was making at Goldman. I needed the money. He broke off, tears streaming down his face, and I felt them through the temporary bond. His desperation, his shame, his fear that he destroyed everything. All my anger drained away, replaced by something I did. To want to examine too closely. How long? I asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been hiding your Omega status? Since college. He wouldn't look at me. I wanted to work in finance. No firm was going to hire an Omega for anything except secretarial work, and even then, they'd expect me to quit when I bonded. So I started on suppressants, wore blockers, and lied on my medical forms. I was good at my job. I proved I could do it. But then Mom got sick, and I needed more money, and your job paid the most. I finished. I was careful. I took double doses of suppressants. I scheduled my heats around your travel schedule. I thought I could. His voice broke. I thought I could make it work. I am sorry. ILL resigned. Just please don't. T report me to the medical board. If they revoke my suppressant prescription, I want T be able to work anywhere. And Mom, stop. I pulled out my phone, ignoring his confused look, and dialed a number I rarely used. David, I need you to do something for me. Vince, it is 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Aren't you supposed to be closing the Nakamura deal? Change of plans. I need you to arrange for a patient transfer. Margaret Hayes at St. Luke. Move her to Sloan Kettering and put her in their VIP program. All expenses covered. What that is going to cost. I don't care what it costs. Do it. And David, keep it quiet. I don't want anyone knowing where the money is coming from. I hung up before he could ask more questions, then turned back to Elliot, who was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Why? He whispered. Because you are not quitting, I said flatly, and you are not going to spend the next 6 months terrified about your mother's medical bills when you should be focused on your job. I can. I can do whatever I want. That is the benefit of being obscenely wealthy. I straightened my tie, trying to ignore the fact that it was stained with Elliot. Slick, your heat is going to last at least 3 more days. You can. Go home like this. You are going to stay at my apartment until it is over. Your apartment, Elliot. S voice rose in pitch. I can. That is not appropriate. Nothing about this situation is appropriate. I cut him off. But you are marked now, temporarily. But anyone with a nose is going to know you are claimed. If you go home to your apartment building, every unmated alpha in a 3-block radius is going to be at your door. Is that what you want? His silence was answer enough. My apartment has a security detail and a heat room. You'll be safe there, and when your heat is over, we're going to have a conversation about your future at this company, and what the hell we're going to do about this. I gestured between us, at the undeniable bond that still hummed in my chest. Okay, Elliot said quietly. Then, even softer, thank you. I didn't, he answered. I just gathered what was left of our professional dignity, called my driver, and prepared to sneak my lying, perfect, infuriating Omega secretary out of the building before anyone saw what we'd done. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. My penthouse apartment had a heat room, a legal requirement for any unmated alpha, even though I'd never expected to use it. It was designed to be comfortable and secure, with reinforced locks and air filtration to keep Omega pheromones from driving the alpha insane. In theory, I should have been able to lock Elliot inside, go about my business, and let the heat run its course. In practice, I spent 72 hours camped outside that door like a feral dog, fighting every instinct that screamed at me to go to my Omega, to help him, to claim him properly, instead of leaving him to suffer alone. The temporary mark given him created a partial bond, not strong enough to be permanent, but strong enough that I could feel echoes of what he was experiencing. Every spike of need, every whimper of discomfort, every moment of desperate loneliness hit me like a physical blow. This is insane, I muttered to myself on day 2, pacing the hallway outside the heat room for the 1000th time. I don't do this. I don't care about people like this. He is an employee, a liar. This is just biology. But biology didn't explain why I had my brother arrange for the best oncologist in the country to take over Margaret Hayes' care. Biology didn't explain why I spent 6 hours researching Omega employment law to make sure Elliot could be discriminated against. Biology didn't explain why the thought of him suffering alone made me want to tear the door off its hinges. On day 3, the pheromones finally started to fade. I stood outside the door, my hand on the handle, trying to decide what the hell I was going to say when I opened it. Before I could decide, the lock clicked from the inside, and Elliot emerged. He looked wrecked, pale, exhausted, his chestnut hair a mess and dark circles under his eyes. But he was steady on his feet, and when he met my gaze, his eyes were clear. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi." We stood there in awkward silence, two people who decrossed every professional boundary possible and now had no idea how to navigate the aftermath. "I called the hospital," Elliot finally said. "About my mother. They said she has been transferred to Sloan Kettering, that her treatment is fully covered by an anonymous donor." His voice cracked slightly. "That was you, wasn't it? It was necessary. It was $1 million, Vincent. That is not necessary. That is—" He broke off, tears welling in his eyes. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because you shouldn't. To have to choose between your mother's life and your career," I said, more harshly than I intended. "Because no one should have to lie about what they are just to survive. Because—" I stopped myself before I could say something I regret. "Because I care about you. Because the thought of you in pain makes me irrational. Because somewhere in the last 6 months, you became more than just a secretary to me, and I am too much of a coward to admit it." "What happens now?" Elliot asked. "Now," I ran a hand through my hair, exhausted. "Now we figure out the mess we've made. You are temporarily bonded to me. Anyone who sees you is going to know you are claimed. The office is already going to be buzzing with rumors about why I abandoned the Nakamura call. Yes, I heard that the deal fell through. Nakamura. San was not pleased about being hung up on." Elliot flinched. "I am so sorry. Stop apologizing. What is done is done." I turned away, unable to look at him without wanting to pull him close and never let go. "You have 2 options. You can continue working as my secretary, and we can maintain a professional relationship while the temporary bond fades over the next few weeks, or you can move in here permanently. Officially, let me court you properly, see if this bond is worth making permanent." The words came out stilted, awkward. I'd never courted anyone in my life. I had no idea how to do this. Elliot was quiet for so long that I thought he was going to choose the first option. Then he asked, very softly, "What do you want?" What did I want? I'd spent 38 years convinced. I didn't. "Do you want a mate?" "Didn't." "Do you want the liability of caring about someone?" I built my entire life around being untouchable, independent, alone. But standing in my hallway, looking at the Omega who somehow become essential to my existence, I finally admitted the truth. "I want you to stay," I said, "not as my secretary, not as my obligation, as my Omega, if that is what you want. I lied to you for 6 months. You survived in a world that tried to put you in a box. That is not lying, that is being smart." I finally looked at him again, letting him see the truth in my eyes. "I am not an easy person to be with, Elliot. I am cold. I am controlling. I'll probably drive you insane, but the word stuck in my throat. I want to try with you." Elliot closed the distance between us, reaching up to touch the mark on his neck. "My mark. I've been alone for so long," he whispered, "taking care of Mom, hiding what I am, pretending to be someone I am not. I forgot what it feels like to let someone take care of me." "Then, let me," I said roughly, pulling him against my chest. "Let me take care of you, both of you, your mother, your career, everything. Just stay." "Okay," Elliot breathed against my shirt. "Okay." The office reaction was exactly as terrible as I expected. When Elliot and I arrived together the following Monday, him wearing a high collar that didn't quite hide my mark, me sporting a possessive glower that dared anyone to comment. The whispers started immediately. Marcus from HR appeared in my office within an hour, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Mr. Crawford, we need to discuss." "Elliot Hayes is my mate." I cut him off. "Temporarily, possibly permanently. He will continue working as my personal secretary. If anyone has a problem with this, they can discuss it with me directly." Was that clear enough, or do I need to send a company-wide memo? Sir, the optics of this, a superior and subordinate, there are policies. The policies dawn, to account for omega biology or unplanned bonds. I said coldly, would you prefer I fire my mate to comply with a policy that is discriminatory by design? Because I am happy to have legal review every single workplace relationship policy we have and point out which ones violate omega protection laws. Your choice. Marcus paled. That one. Be necessary, sir. Good. Then we redone here. He scurried out, and Elliot, sitting at his new desk in my office, ID had it moved in over the weekend, looked up with a barely suppressed smile. That was terrifying and impressive in equal measure. Wait until you see me in the next board meeting, I said dryly. I am planning to eviscerate Jenkins for questioning my judgment on the Nakamura situation. About that, Elliot bit his lip. I know the deal fell through because of me. The deal fell through because Nakamura-san is a prideful old alpha who didn't like being interrupted, I corrected. I am working on smoothing things over, and even if I wasn't it wouldn't be your fault. Your heat hitting early wasn't something you could control. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I walked over to his desk, tilting his chin up so he had to meet my eyes. If you had, I never would have hired you. We both know that, so I am choosing to be grateful that you are stubborn enough to have lied. His smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. You are terrible at the whole romantic thing, you know that. Lucky for me, you seem to find my particular brand of terrible charming. Lucky for you, he agreed. The next few weeks were an adjustment. ID never shared my space with anyone, never had to consider another person's needs or preferences. Elliot was patient with my controlling tendencies and sharp edges, gently pushing back when I got too overbearing, while still letting me take care of him in the ways that mattered. His mother's treatments were going well. The doctors at Sloan Kettering were optimistic about her prognosis. When Elliot took me to meet her, Margaret Hayes took one look at the mark on her son's neck and burst into tears. I was so worried he'd end up alone, she told me, gripping my hand with surprising strength for someone so ill. He has been taking care of me for so long, hiding what he is because he thought that is what he needed to do to survive. Thank you for letting him be himself. He is remarkable, I said, and meant it. You raised someone extraordinary. I did, didn't I? She smiled at Elliot, who was blushing furiously. Take care of him, Vincent. He deserves someone who sees how special he is. I will, and I meant that too. The temporary bond started to fade after 6 weeks, which meant we had to make a decision. Let it dissolve completely, or make it permanent with a true mating bite. I need you to be sure, I told Elliot one night as we sat on my penthouse balcony, the New York skyline glittering below us. Once I mark you permanently, that is it. You are bound to me for life. And I am not an easy person to love. Elliot, I am demanding and cold, and I'll probably fuck this up in 1,000 ways. You paid $1 million for my mother's medical care, Elliot pointed out. You threatened your entire HR department to keep me employed. You reorganized your entire life to make space for me. If that is you fucking up, I can wait to see what you are like when you are trying. I am serious. So am I. He turned to face me fully, his brown eyes steady and sure. 6 months ago, I was alone, terrified, and lying about who I was just to survive. You've given me my mother's life back, a career where I don't have to hide, and someone who values me for exactly who I am. So yes, Vincent, I am sure. Mark me, make me yours, permanently. I kissed him then, slow and deep, tasting the certainty in his acceptance. Then I pulled him into my lap, exposing the pale column of his throat, and bit down right over the fading temporary mark. The permanent bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock, and suddenly I could feel everything, his love, his trust, his absolute certainty that we were meant for this. It was overwhelming and terrifying, and the most right thing I'd ever experienced. When I pulled back, Elliot was crying, but he was smiling too. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too," I said, and realized I'd never meant anything more in my life. 6 months after that, I stood at the altar of a small private ceremony, watching Elliot walk toward me with his mother on his arm. Margaret was in remission, her color healthy and her eyes bright with tears of joy. David was my best man, still slightly incredulous that his cold commitment phobic brother was actually getting married. "I never thought I'd see this," he murmured as Elliot reached us. "Neither did I admitted, but apparently I just needed to hire the right secretary." Elliot laughed, taking my hands in his, and I felt our bond hum with happiness and contentment and a future I'd never imagined wanting. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, but I was barely listening. I was too busy looking at the Omega who lied his way into my office and somehow became the most honest, true thing in my life. Later, at the reception, someone asked Elliot how we met. I answered a job posting. Elliot said with a perfectly straight face, "Vincent was looking for a male secretary to avoid workplace distractions." "And how did that work out for you?" they asked me. I pulled my husband closer, pressing a kiss to his temple. "Terribly. He turned out to be the biggest distraction of my life." "But you kept me anyway," Elliot said. "But I kept you anyway," I agreed. "Best terrible decision I ever made, because sometimes the thing you think you want, a simple, uncomplicated life without messy feelings or vulnerabilities, turns out to be exactly wrong. And sometimes the person who seems like everything you were trying to avoid turns out to be everything you never knew you needed." I hired Elliot to keep my life simple. Instead, he decomplicated it in every way possible and made it infinitely better in the process.